Amber and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are going to do my March reading wrap up. I read a total of 24 things in the month of March, which accounted for 8,924 pages, with an average of a 3.63. I will not be talking about everything that I read in the month of March here. I will actually be leaving a link to my backlist readathon up in the card up above, which includes 7 of the books that I won't be talking about, but otherwise everything will be listed here. That being said, let's get started. The first book that I read in the month of March was Open Book by Jessica Simpson, and this is basically Jessica Simpson's biography talking about her life and how she got to where she was. And I ended up giving this book 4 stars. I listened to this on audio and it was very interesting, and I don't know if it's because nobody that I kind of grew up with is at like the memoir biography stage, but I haven't read a ton of like celebrities that I kind of watched as I was a child who, you know, had highs and lows and have memoirs that I could, you know, go, oh, I remember that moment with. But this was so interesting and eye-opening, and I really enjoyed listening to it. It was just a little long for me, which is why I gave it a 4, but it was so interesting and I really enjoyed the in-depth look into Jessica Simpson's life. I ended up giving it a 4. It was a good time. I highly recommend the audiobook for this one. Next, I read Darling Rose Gold by Stephanie Warble. I received an e-arc of this through NetGalley in exchange for an honest review. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. This book is basically a case of Munchausen by proxy by the mother on the daughter. However, the mother ends up going to jail prior to the book start, and it ends up with the daughter kind of picking her up at the start of the book from her release in prison, and you kind of seeing where this goes. This book is filled with tension and has really perfectly timed flashbacks. However, you kind of can see where all the story beats are headed, and therefore don't kind of expect a happy ending going in or a story that you can't see where it's headed next. Next up is The Passion of Dulce by Julie Berry. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. I don't know if I ended up rating this as high as I did because of Julie Berry's addicting writing style or the fact that I just don't read historical fiction as much as I think I do. But this is basically 1421 Catholic Church versus French Empire, but also it talks about like deeper topics. It also talks about Dulce, who's like considered a heretic, and it's a lovely story, and I really want to read more from Julie Berry now. And I have another book by her on my TBR that Heather from Aphrodite Reads keeps raving about, and I think it's about time I get to it because this one was a really fun time. Next, I read 9 Pints, A Journey Through Money, Medicine, and the Mysteries of Blood by Rose George, and I ended up giving this book 3 stars. Some sections were more interesting than others to me, and it's really self-explanatory as to what this book is about. It literally is talking about kind of the functions of blood and, you know, kind of what people have done for blood and about blood in like blood's history of what knowing blood is. Sidebar, if you have any thoughts on how I review nonfiction books, please let me know in the comments down below. I personally think that I give too many details or not enough details in my descriptions for nonfiction books, because sometimes I feel like the title is enough detail, but I also feel like my reviews aren't detailed enough. But I also feel like nonfiction books are more objective if I say I feel like some sections in this book are better than others. It's nonfiction work. How do I read a nonfiction book? You know, let me know in the comments down below how you feel about my nonfiction readings. Next, I read When You Were Everything by Ashley Woodfolk. I received an e-arc of this through NetGalley in exchange for an honest review. This is basically about a friendship breakup and talking about how 2 friends were friends and then how they broke up, because that's how like friendship breakups work. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. It is really truly a complex story about, you know, how friendships work and what a character and what you can feel after a friendship breakup. And I liked how it was told through the multiple timelines of when they're friends and when they're not friends, because it makes you feel more for the characters. And it was a good time, and I ended up giving this book 4 stars. Next up is the reason I read less books in the month of March than I read most of the rest of the year, but it's the book reason, not the video game reason, because I've been playing a lot of Animal Crossing, and that is The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan, the first book in the Wheel of Time series. And that is about all I got for you for summary reasons, because I can't tell you much about what happened in this book, to be honest. It is like 800 pages. I gave it 3 stars. I really honestly can't tell you what happened because I feel very lost while reading big, dense fantasy books, which is why it took me like over half the month to read. And that's with knowing I could have read it for like the backlist, during the backlist readathon, and just outside of the rest of the month. And I was reading physical and and audio, and it's just, I had been reading this book for like so long, and I finally just powered through it, and it's like, wasn't worth it to me. It just wasn't. And so I read The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan. I gave it 3 stars. It wasn't worth it to me. After that, I ended up reading Disney After Dark by Ridley Pearson. This is what it kind of sounds like. It is about Disney After Dark. It is about kids who can kind of like time portal through to Disney After Dark through their sleep, but they're like chosen kids. I gave this 2 stars. I feel like if I had ever been to Disneyland or Disney World, I might have understood this better, and I might have been able to like be like, ah, look at this thing that they're talking about, and understood. But like, I've never been to Disney, so this book is kind of a little inaccessible, because the only Disney, like going to Disney experiences I've ever had in my life is through Disney Virtual Magical Kingdom. Throwback. But like, I couldn't understand this magic that I was supposed to be loving and experiencing, and I felt left out on a lot of these like tongue-in-cheek jokes that he was making in this middle grade book that I thought was supposed to be like accessible to every middle grader. It just felt inaccessible to middle graders, and therefore me. After that, I decided to catch up on some series that I had been enjoying and just kind of like get in like a nice cozy zone, because I had had some duds and stuff had started to go on with the world. And I decided to start that with Selkies Are a Girl's Best Friend by Molly Harper. This is the 3rd book in the Mystic Bio series, and the Mystic Bio series is basically about a society that has mystical creatures and humans kind of living coexistingly, and each existing book kind of bridges off of the previous one, and you get more creatures and more story, and they always have like the storyline and a little bit of mystery to them, and they're really great. And they're basically the fantasy version of a different Molly Harper series that I enjoy, and I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I really enjoyed learning about Selkies alongside of like what was going on in the story. And I finally got like the romance for this character that we had been knowing since book 1, and I'd been waiting for it the whole time, because I was like, I need to know more about this character, since like she walked on the page and I got to know more about her, and it was great and I loved it. And I gave it 4 stars. That's a great time. After that, I decided it was time to read The Vampiress Priceless Treasure by Kristen. This is book 11 in the Nocturne Vol series, which is wild because I hadn't even started this series like for real until last year, and now I'm like 11 books in, including like the novellas, and I'm loving it. This book in particular follows a character who was like prevalent in a different series that I had read from her, and I just gobbled this one up, and I got to see this character like in more detail, and like this was one of the characters I saw the most detail with, because this is like book 11. I can't really say much because like it bridges onto other things, and this one deals with characters in a different series and characters in a previous book in this series. It was a great time. I gave this one 4 stars. Next, my partner and I read A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. This is the 3rd book in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series, and we ended up really enjoying this one. I ended up giving this book 5 stars, again, upon reread. My partner has some really fun thoughts about this one, and we'll probably do a series review at some point, because this whole first arc is finished, and we reread them together, so I feel like talking about the series with him will be probably a fun idea at some point, because, well, we read this entire series together. I want to hear your thoughts on camera, and I ended up giving this one 5 stars. It was a good time. I still have some of the problems that I had when I read it last time. My partner has pointed out some new problems to me. Did I give it less than 5 stars this time? No, I still gave this book 5 stars. I still found it a honking good time. I will continue to reread this book. It was a great time. I think this was the first reread I've ever had of this book, which is also a fun time. After that, I read Miss Frost Says I Do and Spider 2 by Kristen. This is the 7th book in the Jane Frost mystery series, or Miss Frost mystery series, or Nocturnal Falls mystery series. It has a couple of different names and a couple different hats, just depending on like who you talk to or like how it's written. This one is the compilation of like all 7 books, and like I think this might be the series finale. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. I really enjoy who she ended up with. I really enjoy these characters. I'm so glad that I read this series, and I continued on after the book that kind of like really disappointed me in the series, and kind of like took me out of left field with how it was like going down. This was the series that other character was from, in case you were curious, by Kristen. But this one was a great time. I ended up giving this one a 4 star. If this is the conclusion to the series, I wouldn't be mad. If there's more, I also wouldn't be mad, you know? Next, I read The Fever of 1721, The Epidemic That Revolutionized Medicine and American Politics by Stephen Cross. This is kind of what it sounds like. It is how smallpox influenced the American Revolution. I ended up giving this one 3 stars. It kind of reads very dry, like a textbook at times, and that really does bring down my rating for nonfiction a bunch. I'm a little more lenient when I read disease history and like actual history books, because sometimes it is hard for historical writing to not come off dry, but it was a little dry at times. So I ended up giving this one 3 stars, but it was really fascinating at the same time. Next, I read The Honey Don't List by Christina Lauren. I received an e-arc of this through NetGalley in exchange for an honest review. I ended up giving this book 3 stars. This is kind of about like a HGTV couple who kind of have not like been getting along recently, and their 2 assistants kind of try to keep them together and keep the peace as they're going on tour, and the 2 assistants kind of getting together. This one I would consider the most middle of the road Christina Lauren book to me, and that's probably because I really didn't feel for either of the characters in this romance. I have rated Christina Lauren books lower than a 3 star. However, I feel like this one, it was just super middle of the road to me, and it seemed super formulaic. It felt very like paint by numbers romance, and I know that they can do better than that, and I don't know if I'm falling out of love with like their writing, or this is just becoming not what I'm expecting from them. But I ended up giving this one 3 stars. I'm going to continue to check out Christina Lauren books in the future, and I might even read some more of their backlist stuff, but I'm just really disappointed by this one, and again, like I said, I gave this one 3 stars. Next, I read The Best Lies by Sarah Liu. This was a 2019 debut that I ended up picking up, and I ended up giving this one 2 stars. I was drawn to this one due to the fact that it was about a seemingly perfect like friendship group where this girl had a best friend and a boyfriend, and then the best friend shoots and kills the boyfriend, and like, what is the truth? The reason I give this one 2 stars is really because I can't tell if this was one of those let's try to examine toxic relationship books, or let's make these people purposely toxic just because we can books. And overall, it wasn't impactful either way that it was done, and I ended up giving it 2 stars because of it. Next, my partner and I read The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. My partner and I kind of have this like little book club together that we listen to audiobooks, you know, together and whatnot. We'll probably be discussing this one when we finish the series. This is his first time reading The Hunger Games. I'm super excited, you know, to experience that with him. I gave this one 5 stars upon reread. He gave this one 5 stars. I wanted to reread this because we were preparing for the new book. I do not know how to describe this one if you had never heard of this. It is about a girl named Katniss Everdeen and her being reaped for this competition. And I also like, you know, this reread, as you learn something new with every reread. Basically, my review for this one on Goodreads said Katniss had big dumb bitch energy. This one was that. I stand by that review on Goodreads 120%. And my other sidebar is that Peeta Mellark needs to be protected at all costs, but that was obvious as well. Next, I read My Story by Elizabeth Smart. I have had the audiobook for this one for a while, and so I figured it was time to read it, and I ended up giving this one 3 stars, which seems like a super harsh rating, but hear me out. Basically, this one is pitched as it being kind of like her story about what happened to her and like the aftermath of what happened to her and how she's recovered and stuff like that. And I know she's a motivational speaker, and I was interested in hearing more about the aftermath because a lot of like true crime stuff in general focuses on the event. And I understood going in that this book would probably focus partly on her talking about what happened to her, and it's her place to talk about what happened to her. But I also was hoping for it to talk about you know, how she's recovered, especially knowing that she is a motivational speaker. Unfortunately, it focused a lot about what happened to her and like how that has affected her faith, and it wasn't really talking about like how she's kind of recovered. And I ended up giving this one like 3 stars as a result. If I had known it had so much to do with her faith, I probably wouldn't have picked it up. And that seems really harsh, but I just was not super interested in hearing about how her faith was affected by this experience. Next, I read A Court of Frost and Starlight by Sarah J. Maas. This is the like 3.5 bridge novella between this one and what is going to be like the next series for this series. And I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I know this is a novella, and I know a lot of people have complaints as to why does this exist, and I understand where those are coming from. However, you have to think that there's got to be some kind of show as to why do we need to continue on, because a lot of fantasy books just kind of leave the thing as where it was. And I liked seeing, oh, so everything isn't all good, and this is where this tension is, and this is where that tension is. And it just was nice to see like the little weave of like, this is why we need to see that. And honestly, I liked seeing this Christmas special. It was a nice time to also see these characters together. My partner, he also read it with me. He gave it like 3 stars, I think, which is low for him, but it was a fun time. I enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. I understand the criticisms of it, but it's what I needed, you know? But the very last book that I read in the month of March was Fly Girls: How 5 Daring Women Defied All Odds and Made Aviation History by Keith O'Brien. This is basically kind of what it sounds like, and I ended up giving it 4 stars. I found it to be an interesting story about aviation, and I had not known much about aviation prior. I gave this one 4 stars. So these are some of the books that I read in the month of March. Again, if you have any ideas for how I should go about talking about nonfiction, again, let me know in the comments down below. I do have an idea about maybe doing a video at some point talking about how I rate nonfiction, but again, if you have a better idea, let me know in the comments down below. If you like what you saw here today, be sure to like and subscribe. I normally post videos on Wednesdays. Thank you so much for watching, and have a nice day.